You're entering Corsi Nation.
This is Dr. Jerome Corsi, and we're doing a special show today on kinds of abuses that are going on around the country. This story comes from Palm Beach, Florida, and involves a horse farm, a doctor, and kind of a history of harassment. And it's overreaching government officials wanting to impose their will upon citizens who are trying to live a normal life and trying to take care of their livestock and do the right thing. Now, it's a complex story. We've got several people here, and Chris, go ahead and show the group here. I'd like to first introduce Dr. Joe D. Bear, PhD, who is the one who's brought this story to us. And Joe D. will start into the story and give it over to Dr. James Marinakis, who is the principal here, the one whose horses have been affected and who is now under the potential of criminal indictment. So, Dr. Joe D., do you want to begin the story?
Yes, I do. And thank you, Jerome, for this platform. And thank you for bringing this to your wonderful YouTube channel. I'm Dr. Jody Bear. I have been a holistic practitioner and nutritionist PhD for the last 4 decades. I've known Dr. Jim Marinakis for going on my 2nd decade. And this is the second time that this has happened. Just to give you a little background, ladies and gentlemen, and who Dr. Jim is. He's a naturopathic physician, homeopath, acupuncture physician, a businessman, inventor, international speaker, but he's the premier formulator of products, processes, unlike any other. He's a former Olympic team physician, world-renowned authority on healthcare, and countless other things. But the one thing I want to bring to the attention and then turn it over to Dr. Jim is that he saw 35,000 patients in his first 10 years of practice, all by referral basis. Okay, he's lectured thousands of corporations. He is the co-founder with me of our latest initiative, Healthopedia Publishing. He has helped and assisted in, as we say, educating not only practitioners like myself, but people in their own health and wellness. But he believes in the integrity of social health for humanity. And he has a therapeutic farm west Boca Raton, Florida, which is in the eastern part of the Everglades. And he has been doing this research improvement for the health and humanity, including my health, which you will hear a bit later, now for 55 years. So, Jerome, I think that's a bit of a background, so you can then turn it over to Dr. Jim.
Okay, so Dr. Jim, why don't you tell us the story of what happened?
Sure. Recently, I was contacted by the Palm Beach County Animal Care and Control through a phone call, and I was told that they received a complaint. They wanted to come and investigate my horses on the property, or the horses on the property. And I said, that's fine. You know, when did you want to do that? And they said that they wanted to do it right away, but I was not at the farm. And I asked if we could make an appointment, and they said, I'll get back to you. They texted me and said, well, we're going to be there on Tuesday. And it was on a Monday. And I said, well, it just rained yesterday. It's flooded here. You might want to make it on Wednesday or Thursday. And I got a text back saying, listen, I'm not fooling around with you. I've got a complaint I have to investigate. You need to be there when I tell you you need to be there. So I said, well, let me know about whether or not Wednesday or Thursday would work. And I never heard back from them. So I went ahead and stayed at the farm on Tuesday. About halfway through the day, I called, no answer. I texted them, no answer. I texted them several times. Never got a phone call, never got an answer or anything. They never showed up on Tuesday. So on Wednesday, about midday, I was there at the farm doing some work with my son and other people there. And I got a call from the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Department. They said, I have a warrant to search your property. I said, that's interesting. I'm sitting here waiting for Palm Beach County Animal Care and Control, and they cut me off and said, listen, I'm here to search your property. You need to drop what you're doing. You need to come over here where I am. And I said, okay. And they said, make sure everybody comes over here. We did. We went over there. They sequestered us off the property, and they proceeded to bring a trailer to take horses away with them onto the property without having come looked at the horses, talked to me or anything, based on some complaint from an anonymous person. Although the sheriff's deputy, when I was talking with him, told me that he had interviewed the person. And I said, well, how come it's anonymous if you've interviewed the person? And then immediately the conversation stopped. So they wound up, they said they were going to take 12 horses. They came to take 10. They wound up taking 8 because one of the people working there asked them why they were taking 2 of the horses that were perfectly healthy and in training for competition. And they said, oh, well, if you want those horses, we'll leave them. So after hours, well into the night, standing in the rain, my son and I were let to go back on the property. They kept 2 dogs tied up to a piece of equipment for 5 hours while they sat in the patrol car, and we were soaked, eaten by mosquitoes. We went back and found out that they had taken these horses, and they said they couldn't catch 2 of the horses. That's why they didn't take them. But in reality, the person working there told me he pleaded with them as to why they were taking them when there was nothing wrong with them. And I don't know why. I've had experiences where the employees of Palm Beach County Animal Care and Control took personal possession of animals that they extracted from various people. What's taking place there is not right. It's way overreach. As I mentioned earlier, the last time I had this situation, I was able to catch them damaging an animal. And I signed a piece of paper that became the court decision. It's in the record that I wouldn't sue them and they would drop all the charges against me. But this time they've come back with a vengeance, and it's abusive. There's no doubt whatsoever that these people are after me. They're not trying to protect any animals. They're not trying to enforce any laws. They're trying to punish somebody who got away from them. It's the most un-American thing I've ever participated in. Then the charges were filed against me. I was arrested, taken to jail. I was charged with 3 felony counts of animal cruelty, which is extraordinary because that has to be an intentional event. And I was charged with 5 misdemeanors of animal neglect on top of that. And this is from a herd of 86 animals. And I guess they think that somehow these animals, of which 2 or 3 of them were underweight, not much, but it happens after the rainy season. And they put the weight right back on afterwards. There are reasons why this happens, and they're well known in veterinary science. But they chose to pursue this case against me and make these criminal charges and civil charges. And now they're taking custody of the animals and serving me with a bill for their care. I'm not sure how this is all going to come out, but I think everybody I've talked to across the country, first, they don't believe that this could actually be taking place, but it is. And they think that it's absolutely absurd because in a herd of 86 horses, to have 1 horse that needs care is not uncommon at all. In fact, usually there would be more than 1 on any day that needs some kind of care. And to charge someone with a felony crime because a horse needs treatment, which is being arranged for. My veterinarian was already called and making arrangements for an appointment to come and treat 1 wound, which was not an urgent matter. It wasn't an emergency. Yet that's the basis of their claim that I'm guilty of a felony of animal cruelty. That's the nature of the case.
Are you a doctor? Do you have a background in dealing with horses?
Yes, I've been dealing with horses for decades. I did a residency treatment with a gentleman who was a legendary veterinarian named William J. Hulse, who graduated from Kansas City Veterinary School. And veterinary care is covered in natural medicine. Naturopathic medicine is used to treat animals of all types. Homeopathic medicine is used to treat animals of all type. And traditional Chinese medicine is used to treat animals of all type. I will admit that my work is outside the box. I'm known for being a game changer in medicine. I have established new science in medicine for which I have had a court ruling in my favor from the Arizona State Supreme Court that I have introduced a new medical science. And that is the science that's growing and manifesting into a profession while we speak. I'm the originator of that profession.
And what is that profession?
It's called myopractics. Very narrowly known. There are people that perform closed surgical reduction through manipulation, and it produces extraordinary results. In fact, Carly can attest to the fact that after years of trying to get pregnant and not being able to, and her husband is in medicine, in a demonstration I used to teach them about myopractics and what it could do, she was able to conceive not once but twice, and she has the proof right there. So it's something new, and it's something capable of adding to what men have available to them to solve the problems in their life and to further their existence. But it too was dealt with tremendous resistance. And at one time I was sued by every board of examiners in the state. They all lost, and I won, because times are changing, and without innovations, mankind is doomed to what they have right now. And right now, 95% of the entire population of the earth will suffer from a disease for 20 to 30 years before they die from it. If we don't change the things that we're doing, we're doomed to something that is less than human.
And you're not a veterinarian.
I'm not a veterinarian. No, most care for horses is done by their keepers, not by veterinarians.
All right, let's get some additional testimony here. Carly, do you want to go next?
Sure. So I'm a physician assistant. My husband's a doctor of physical therapy, and we've been trying for about 3 years to have a child. And we'd known Dr. Jim for a couple years prior to that. And so we tried multiple things, including taking some medication for a sluggish thyroid. And I wasn't willing. The only thing that OBs were willing to do at that point was either go IVF route or take something like Clomid or something to stimulate ovulation more, which wasn't a guarantee. So we were about to the point where we were wanting to adopt, and kind of as a last ditch, we called Dr. Jim. We're like, are you able to see us? I know I've heard that you've helped people with infertility issues before. Not fully convinced that it would work, but it was worth a shot at that point. And so we traveled down to Florida from Kentucky, and after one treatment and spending the day with him, he had done some magic, and within the next month I had conceived my first child, and now we have 2 beautiful children. They're super healthy, and everything's been great. And I attribute that to him working with us. I really don't know what else could have happened. So I'm internally grateful to Dr. Jim for helping us, and he also helps my sister-in-law and brother-in-law with infertility issues. So my niece and nephew are also here because of him. I truly believe that. So thank you.
So Carly, and isn't that true? Then when you went down there, Dr. Jim, just like he has worked with me, we've learned this because we're practitioners, and he educates people. Because Tyler, your husband, being a doctor of physical therapy, he was able to educate Tyler, your husband, on that one myopractic procedure, correct? And
Yes. So he showed him a few things, and so when we went home, we were able to continue it. Honestly, he didn't end up needing to do a lot because just the one visit was enough.
So Richard, do you want to enter the conversation?
And I'd like to introduce Buck as well. And Carly, we love the baby noises behind. You just keep those going. It's music to our ears. But Richard Buck Buckman is an international and national government and economic leadership, as we say, relationship builder, the dot connector. His office is across from the White House, but he is truly one who believes in the Constitution and the Republic of the United States. And Richard, I love the, yes, we're not going to pass the buck to Buck Buckman. So it's wonderful to hear from you in Mississippi, for sure.
Well, guys, it's great to join you today. I was very honored to be invited to be a part of this. As Dr. Jody said, I've been doing politics for 40 years, the last 25 in DC, and I have seen our government's erosion, not by the year, but almost by the day, to the place where we are now. I wasn't 100% sure I was going to be able to make the podcast today, so I made a note that I want to read in just a minute because I don't want to leave anything out. But in talking about government overreach, Dr. Marinakis said something that I did not include in the note I wrote when he's talking about this anonymous tip. You know, our justice system is based upon some principles, and one of those principles is to be able to face your accuser in court. So if they're doing all these charges and Dr. Marinakis is not even going to get to address the person that started this whole thing, that seems very unfair to me. But I'm going to read this brief bit that I just put together about overreach. I said, our founding fathers would be shocked to see the government they created being used in such a heavy-handed way as we're seeing now in Palm Beach County, Florida, with actions taken against Dr. James Marinakis. This is not the kind of government that we envisioned in 1776. They wanted a nation free of government oppression, a nation where the government protects its people and not one where the citizens feel they must be protected from their government. The ongoing prosecution of Dr. Marinakis is unjust and should be brought to an end at once. Our justice system cannot be used as a tool for personal or selective punishment. We need a government that follows the Constitution and respects the rights of every citizen, not one that adds to the growing concern over needless and excessive government overreach. I apologize for reading that, but I thought there was a couple of points I didn't want to leave out. But this is overreach that we're seeing here in Palm Beach County, but we're seeing it all over the country, where government has forgotten the principles that we were founded on. And I am quite sure that every one of our founding fathers would roll over in their grave if they could see what they founded on, the principles they founded it on, has just completely been turned 180 degrees. Now our citizens need to be protected from the government instead of the government protecting our citizens. And it is worse in some areas. I don't know that it's anywhere worse than what we're seeing in Palm Beach County against Dr. Marinakis right now. Fortunately, we do have some patriots that have connections to Florida. Obviously, Governor DeSantis is a good patriot, and we are working with some folks to try to get them to look into some of this overreach, and as well as obviously the Attorney General there in Florida. And obviously one of the most famous Florida residents is President Trump. So we do have some patriots in Florida. The whole thing is very upsetting in Palm Beach, that they can just selectively on their own Twitch single out somebody like Dr. Marinakis, who is doing great work, and make an example out of him for for no good reason, or at least that's what they're trying to do. But this is one of the worst cases of government overreach that I've seen, and I see a lot of it across the country. But we're going to do everything we can to help make it right.
And Ron, want to introduce yourself and get in the conversation?
And, I'd love to, and Jerome, I'd love to introduce Ron because, to be quite honest, because he is a formulator himself. He's CEO of Trendtech Bio. He has created a company with curcumin and with nutritional supplements that's second to none. As a nutritionist myself, I love them. I will say, but what I love is his heart, and I think he's got a little bit of horse background as well. And thank you, Jerome, for letting me interject.
Thank you again for this time. Listening to this whole thing, I've talked to Jim about the horses, and my daughter's a barrel racer. We have a horse that we bred from that horse to come up, and I've dealt with horses. Horses are fickle. Horses are they're very interesting animals. Just from the standpoint of the way I said, one of the questions aside from why fire ants when I get to heaven, the other question is, why the heck did you design the digestive system of a horse the way you did? Because it's quite a feat to try to keep an animal like that healthy, because you've got a very small stomach, a lot of intestine. This is why they constantly are grazing. So as we were talking about 84 horses, which that's a whole other thing, we were talking about some of the things that happen when you have horses. And you've got wetlands where they're at, so that adds a complexity. But he had an issue with some proud flesh, which is simply a wound. I've got 25 years in wound care. And it's not uncommon for a horse to just want to rub up against a fence or something and get cut. And then all of a sudden you have to treat it. And they were treating this. And then of course you can get proud flesh, which you get a vet to come in. And that's not an emergency for a vet, just as an FYI for everybody. That's not an emergency vet call. That's a call where a vet will put you off to come out and basically remove that flesh and deal with the wound. It's very common, quite common. And so for anybody to come in and say that was abuse, to me is well beyond an understanding of actually vet care. But I think my point is that having looked at this from an outside perspective, there's a potential of using agencies for a land grab here and in this situation, and using the animals as basically the conduit to get to a land grab, and which is not something. You can look at what was going on. Recently, I was in New Jersey, that family farm that they were trying to take over for the land to actually put urban housing on was another situation where agencies were being used to do a land grab in an area because they wanted the land. So they were using government influence on it. So part of my contribution on this is I could speak to nutrition and animals, but I'm really speaking to the cause. And I've known Jim and his work, which is quite astounding. Probably not easy for everybody to understand his level of working with energy and how that all affects us in health, which is beautiful work. But the other side is that looking back at what Richard was saying, looking back at people using government agencies as weapons, or weaponization, even on local levels, changing rules that probably even violate the Florida Constitution. I don't know the Florida Constitution, but the things I'm hearing are not something you would see in the state of Texas being done. So my only contribution on this is, I feel for the legality of it and the fact that something has to come about the being right, and using agencies and animals as an attempt to go after somebody's rights is just such overreach. It's crazy.
So it sounds like the basic argument here is that the horses were well, maybe needed some care, but they were well. This was not an exceptional situation for a horse. But the underlying motivation was that Dr. Marinakis did not want to sell the land. Evidently, land is very valuable. It is coveted by someone who is willing to file charges and utilize a lawfare scheme to grab the land. Is that what's being accused here? Is that what you all think is happening?
Well, I think that there is a strong contingency of people that see that taking place. There's a large national developer, one of the largest in the country, who's been trying to buy the land. And that may very well, this makes more sense than a horse that needs a routine procedure being reason to accuse somebody of animal cruelty. But this type of this outright lying under the color of law, they do it intentionally. It's misleading. They outright lie. And they bring it into the courts and present it as evidence of crime. And they do it under the color of law, and it's to control a narrative, only to create a smear campaign to carry out an agenda for their own use. This isn't legal. This is misuse of justice, misuse of the system. It's an abuse of power.
Dr. Marinakis, if I could say, I would not be surprised for, if it ever comes out who the anonymous source is, it would be from the potential buyer or someone related to them. And I would not be the least bit surprised, because I've seen this happen in a lot of other places, I hate to say, that sometime before your court date, you will be approached that if you were to sell, that they could probably make these charges go away. That is completely heavy-handed and completely unprofessional, unethical, but it happens every day with the government that we live in.
Well, I can just hope and pray that somehow, somewhere, relief comes prior to anything like that taking place. But I feel that there are enough people that understand the nature of what's going on, that justice will prevail, and that our system of government will do what it was designed to do, which is to protect the public and to protect what's American.
If this goes forward, could you be charged and convicted with a crime?
Yes, 3 felonies and 5 misdemeanors is what they're charging me with. And they will put me in prison if they can.
For how long?
Well, that I don't know. That's up to the judge. But years.
I want to talk for a second about that, because within the charges that he was speaking on, the felonies, it says intent. And I don't know if anybody spent any time around that. Intent means that you intentionally wanted to create harm. Intent is very hard to prove in a court of law. You have to just prove that you intentionally wanted to harm that horse. And the horses were being treated, waiting on a vet to show up, for a vet to remove proud flesh or whatever, but the horses were being treated. You had a large number of horses. So if your intent was to harm, then you have to, you think about this in your head. You'd have to selectively look at these certain horses and say, I intend on harming that horse, then I'm also trying to heal at the same time. So throwing this into a felony, almost like a criminal case, I say you have to intend to murder, right? You have to show intent. If you had no intention, then the charges are completely different than if you did intend to create the harm. So throwing these charges, and I have no idea where they want to come at that one, since there was no initial, think about this, there was no initial visits. Nobody had gone out there and looked at these animals prior. There was no history of the state or the city doing any work with regards to monitoring these animals, but showing up at a certain point in time and then claiming that there was an intent to harm becomes, to me, very suspicious. If you can't look through that one in terms of somebody logically looking at a situation and saying you're coming at this from a perspective of trying to criminally charge somebody with no prior advance looking at the history of the animal, the medical care of the animal, all the things that were done, the diets of the animal, all of the situations that would go with to show that you intended to harm the animal, then it has to lead to another conclusion. And for me, that conclusion is they're using agencies and the animals in weaponization.
Yeah.
And anybody with a logic trail, legally or otherwise, can look at this and can a vet go walking in and say, oh, well, this animal was mistreated. Well, having a daughter who is very well educated in nutrition and genetics and animals, I can tell you that that's incredibly difficult for somebody to subjectively come in and do that. without understanding the history of the diet of the animal, what's going on with the actual environment of the animal itself. And these are field animals. So these aren't stable horses. These are not horses that are sitting in stables that are every day being looked at. These are animals that they have the forage diet, and then they have diet to supplement their diet. And then, of course, he talked about the conditions in the rain, which actually puts a different stress on the animals. So my whole situation with this, if you look at the logic at the front end of this, before they ever walked into that area to, quote, recover the animals on a, quote, anonymous tip, then the subjection would be, you have to be doing this with the intent to harm Dr. Marinakis, not to care for the animals whatsoever.
And what Ron, what you said there, I'd like to just say, Dr. Jim and also Jerome, that when I say, and I introduced Jim the numerous times that I have, Dr. Jim, and I have gone ahead and said 35,000 client patients his first 10 years of practice. I've been 40 years as a holistic nutritionist and health coach. Over that 4 decades, I've seen close to 30,000 people in 4 decades, but people come to me as the last resort. I always wanted to be the first resort, but they come to me with nutritional advice. But what I have learned from Jim, Dr. Jim, training underneath him, learning what I can as an educator as he is, I have learned more from him in my now going into 2 decades than I did for the other 2 decades. And I've been able to implement that to others. And for that to stop because of intent, that is just egregiousness on the health of humanity. Because, and I brought 2 visual aids, my panel, and Jerome, you're gonna like this. Okay, see this carrot? Mm-hmm. This is a carrot. Okay, this carrot, if Jerome, you would eat it, Jim, Carly, Buck, Ron, it's going to do separate things with this carrot. Why? Because of your DNA. It's just a carrot. One size does not fit most, just like Spanx. Women, you know what this is. This girdle does not fit one size fits all, or even one size fits most. You need individual attention, just like your DNA. And that is the crux of nutrition. That is the crux of what I know that Carly has experienced and learned, and your family has learned from Dr. Jim. I have tremendous respect on how he's been able to individually help and assist and support people in their nutrition. Is he going to do anything different with his animals? I say, of course not. Thank you.
Dr. Tim, you also are an author and have written on these subjects. Is that correct?
I have, mostly on human growth and development and some other things more of a spiritual nature. I spend more of my time developing solutions for animals and people. The outdoor facility is used to help me develop things that eliminate disease in people and animals. I developed a medicine to stop wounds that won't heal. I used elements of the United States Pharmacopoeia to do that. And I share them with other people, and they're being approved for distribution. Right now, we've got letters of request before the Food Drug Administration to be able to inform people as to how these natural things can be used. But more than I write, I develop solutions. I develop different substances that are from organic compounds. And without being able to see the horses with what they're faced in nature, I can't really collect the data, that individual data that I get from the horses like I get from people, to create the solution. And they're telling me you can't do that. If this horse has any kind of problem, you have to go to a veterinarian. You can't treat it yourself. And I said, listen, everybody treats their horses. The agreement I have with the veterinarian is he tells me to follow these procedures, and if they don't work, call me. And that's what I do. And I don't know anybody that does anything any different. You can't. And their veterinarians are claiming, by looking at the animal, they didn't ask me, well, this animal's underweight, did you change its diet? They didn't ask me how they're being taken care of or treated or managed. Every rainy season, a certain number of animals lose weight. Those animals are treated differently. They're given more protein. They're given different types of feed. They're isolated so that they're not with other animals that would push them away from food. And they're observed and studied so that I can understand why that particular animal is losing weight, because all the other animals have not lost weight. They're fine, being taken care of by the same people, being taken care of under the same procedures. So there's something individual about that animal. And I identify that and I address it so that the next year that animal doesn't lose weight. It's healthy even through the rainy season. And they're saying you can't do that. You have to do what we're saying needs to be done. And if you don't, you're guilty of a crime. And I don't see how that can be. Why did I get 3 doctoral degrees not to be able to use the information for the benefit of humanity and animals? It doesn't make sense to me. I think that if people don't change their ideas about what's right, they cannot progress. Progress requires change. I've brought change to this world, to this field. The result of it can be seen in a practical way. Carly explained how, for her, it enabled her to realize a family. There are many people that have lived as a result of the benefits that those horses have afforded me. And right now, there's an epidemic in the equine industry. Ron can tell you more about it. It's a herpes outbreak, a viral herpes outbreak that's closed 6 borders and threatens to shut down the biggest equestrian event in America. Several extremely expensive horses, he can tell you more about it if he wishes to, have died. I have a remedy that I developed on that farm for that problem, and I want to get it into the hands of the people at Texas A&M or anywhere that I can so that it becomes realized. But they keep tying my hands. I once bred a dog that would immunize itself to parvo right before the pandemic. We could have used that information during the pandemic. They killed my dogs. I stopped doing it. This is a type of oppression that couldn't be more targeted if they wanted it to be. And I think the people that are doing this may be doing it out of ignorance, but nonetheless, it's still happening. And the only hope is for other fellow Americans to do something about it, because they have the power to do anything that they want in this situation.
Mhm.
And when is the trial scheduled?
Well, there's a trial scheduled this Friday for them to take the horses. It's a civil procedure in which they'll ask the court to award them the horses and to force me to pay whatever damages that they want for having taken them away from me and treated them according to their own measures. And then on the 18th of the month, there's a criminal arraignment is going to take place. And that'll take place over the next several months while they present their case to prove the felony charges against me.
And conceivably, you could lose your freedom.
That's exactly what they're seeking to do.
And of course, when you go through the legal costs, you have extreme costs. You'll have to pay for that. Will that jeopardize your farm?
Well, it has already. I am taking measures. It's not, the farm is owned by a trust, but it's run for the benefit of the work that I'm doing there. And I think it'll survive, but it may prevent that place from being used for what it was intended to be, which was a facility where people could come and learn how to realize the same things that Carly and Jody have realized, and how to take better care of themselves, not relying on physicians any longer, but on their own knowledge of how to live their life in a way free from disease with a longer, healthier, happier existence. That might not happen there.
So, Buck, can this be brought into any department in the government to take a look at this, raise the visibility of this case?
Yeah, Jerome, and I'm already taking steps to do that with the Governor DeSantis's office and the Attorney General's office there. And I've even taken it to a close associate within the administration, just to make them aware that this was happening in their neck of the woods. I'm hoping that some political calls and some political questions can make some of this weaponization stop in this case. I firmly believe that it's a land grab and that they are having a connection there somehow. I don't know who the potential buyer's connection is, but I don't see any other way that it's not a land grab, because as Ron has said and Dr. Marinakis has said, I at one time owned 17 horses myself. I'm a former team roper. And everything these guys are saying is exactly true. I mean, when you got animals out running in a pasture that are not in the stable every day, you can't expect the same wear and tear on those animals. And for people to come out and take the animals without doing any research into any of it, that lets you know that the deal was already cut before they ever left the office of what they were doing and why they were doing it. And that's about as strong an argument as you can bring to these offices and say this just got to be stopped. And so, Jerome, probably a long answer to a short question, but yeah, I'm doing some things to try to spread some light on the deal, and hopefully that light can cause it to get a little bright, and maybe that we can get some things changed.
I mean, you're in Palm Beach and you're right there at Mar-a-Lago.
That's right.
It wouldn't be too hard to let the president know this is going on.
Well, that's what I've said. I've already talked to some people pretty plugged into the administration to make sure that he's aware that this is happening basically in his backyard. Yes.
Jerome, I think that actually Buck is from Mississippi. I'm in Palm Beach.
Yeah. No, I'm in Mississippi. Right. I live between here. I still have my office in D.C. at 601 Pennsylvania Avenue. So Jody was right. I'm literally right there by the White House. So I'm very well connected, and I have folks that are in my office every day. And when I can't do Zoom, I'm in D.C. But I will tell you, when I first moved to D.C., you could be a Republican, and I could be a Democrat. We could argue all day and go out and have steaks and scotch at night and pick it up the next day. I go to D.C. as few times as possible, because now you can be a Republican and I can be a Democrat. You can forget the steak, you can forget the scotch. If you're even seen making eye contact in a bar, you both get blackballed. And so when you can't have a conversation with somebody, you explain why we can't get something done, and that's where we are. If you look, we're not getting anything done, and it's a shame. So I know that's not the subject for this podcast, but that kind of thing is just another example of how dysfunctional our government at the national level, and even as Ron said earlier, in the local level, with the weaponization. That this is nothing at all like the government we were set up to have by the founding fathers. I mean, there is absolutely nothing left of what they had in mind when they started this.
And Jody, this must upset you tremendously, knowing Dr. Marinakis and what he's done.
It has been extremely, Jerome, emotional. Why? Because I know that with his expertise, he put this Humpty Dumpty back together again, post stage 4 melanoma. All right. And, then you see Carly with this growing family and things. There's just, I have seen now my partner with Healthopedia, with publishing, I've edited his story of what he's done. And I remember when I said very flippantly, and I said, okay, this is after I first mentioned, what are you saying, Dr. Jim? So when with your expertise, people, blind people see, and the deaf hear, and lame walk. And I said, I'm beginning to see this because I've seen his expertise. And I said to him most recently, I said, with my musical background, that he's Beethoven. Beethoven, they thought he was nuts, that he had no hearing whatsoever, and his music was just, it was cacophony. Well, it wasn't. When Bartok came on the scene in the late 1800s, they said, this is what Beethoven was trying to do. Dr. Jim Marinakis is the Beethoven of our time. He has always been a trailblazer. What I've seen over my now into 2 decades of working side by side with him, not only as a student, but now as a partner. And what I learn from him every single day, for that to be silenced is an atrocity. For that to be getting him diverted, as he said to me recently when this occurred, he said, I'm being diverted from what my real purpose is supposed to be. That is the true atrocity. And Buck, I love what you said, that if we don't know who the accuser is, we might as well be in Venezuela, China, Russia. I'm just going to say it.
That's a fact.
We're in the United States of America, where free speech is one of our inalienable rights. But at this point, with Dr. Jim, speech is not free. And there is what Thomas Paine, I believe, said. I'm not the patriot and the historian, but what happens is when true men do nothing. So what is it? We must do something about this, because I know in my heart what Dr. Jim, in my little sliver of the pie, is on the threshold of, not only with the herpes, but he has a way, and I'm not doing making a comical thing, whatever. I've seen him make something from dirt. That's what homeopathy does. They're able to make something out of nothing. And if he can take the something with his expertise, calling, and his ability to make wound healing, to create something for humanity in his now new and upcoming products, that could easily be diverted because he has to defend his reputation. But there was something in the early 2000s where people testified against Congress. And I had a physician that was helping me with my health, and he just was not around anymore. Well, we don't know what happened to those doctors. They're just not around, and you can read between the lines. But ladies and gentlemen of this podcast, if we stand aside and do nothing, see, the same thing has happened to this man who has done nothing but help people for his 5 decades. And what he has done with kindness and expertise and intellect and insight, unlike any I've been experienced, what happens then, that's silenced. That's no different than somebody just not showing up for work, if you know what I mean, Jerome. And it happens, and we know it. But now it's time to have the conversation about it. Because when a reputation is ruined, you can Google the name Dr. James Marinakis right now, and you'll see everything that we've done with Healthopedia, with our books. I just happen to have our most recent one with The Essence of a Woman. It goes pages and pages and pages. All of a sudden, poof, there's an arrest. There's something wrong about that. And let's make the wrong right by rising up. And thank you for giving us this mouthpiece just to do exactly this, Jerome.
Okay, now how can people follow you, and how can they get in touch with you?
Jim, do you want to go and then I'll go?
Well, I think that people can contact us through Healthopedia.
Yes,
And-
Healthopedia 365. And I will put this in the private chat. You can contact me on my personal website, which is drjody.com. You can go ahead and you go on Instagram. Very easy. It's Healthopedia, and I will change this right now on the screen. This is the easiest way, I believe. I'm going to edit my name on Instagram because I'll see it immediately. Because obviously, Dr. Jim, if you've got your hearing, this is like immediate. So it's Healthopedia. Because why did we select this name? Because Dr. Jim, you are a walking encyclopedia of health. So it's Healthopedia 365 on Instagram. You can DM me, and I'll absolutely bring you into the conversation.
And Joe DeBier, you've got a book. Do you want to show the cover of your book?
Well, I have the Essence of a Woman here. Actually, I've got the Healthopedia book. It is in my suitcase going to me reading, should I have to testify, Dr. Jim, but it's got some bookmarks in it. But the Essence of Woman, when you see the people that are these A-listers on our women's health book, it says Tiffany Haddish, it says Dr. Khalila Camacho Ali, Muhammad Ali's wife, who is absolutely, thank you so much, is just aghast at this. She said the same thing that's happening to Dr. Jim happened to my husband, Muhammad Ali, because they wanted to eviscerate him. Those are her words today. And of course, Her Royal Highness Princess Dr. Moradian Ogalana, who is the UN ambassador from Nigeria. Now she's Queen of Nigeria. I'm going to be with her next week at the Africa 259 Summit. And that was someplace that, Jim, you were to accompany me. Now he can't. You never know what you can't do when they're trying to put the lid on what you can do.
As they've taken your passport, I'm sure you can't leave the country, right?
Well, they haven't asked for my passport yet, but I have to notify them if I intend to leave the country. I think that's when it would take place.
Well, this is a tragedy. This type of story occurs. And I encourage people to really get involved, and we'll follow up with it with subsequent shows as to what's happening. So, Jody, stay in touch.
Yes.
And Dr. Dr. Marinakis, I think you should put up a GoFundMe or do something where people can contribute to you.
That's not a bad idea. My attorneys are going to like it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to need it. I'm going to need it. They're going to like it. I'm going to need it. Thank you. We'll do it. Appreciate it, Jerome.
And start publicizing it more, start writing about it more, getting the word out there.
Yeah.
People know about this. I believe that they'll see this as an outrage and want it to stop.
I hope so. It's time that these things end.
Well, we've got an overreaching government, a bureaucracy that thinks it's beyond reproach. And money talks. People want to get things. They don't care harm and damage they create. And this is just not right. So we'll have you back, and we'll have more continuation of this story. And thank you for joining us. God bless, and we wish you well.